126 here on WWL AMFM.com and always live on the free Odyssey app. Over on the Oak Renard Jewelers Talkin' text line. Here's a text that says, deep gras and family gras are the most ridiculous sayings that we have. They mean deep fat and fat family. LOL. I guess I hadn't thought. I mean, we've heard people say about family gras means fat family in French, but I've never thought about deep gras meaning deep fat. Anyway, joining us on the line right now is Dominique LeJeune. Dominique holds a special place in the New Orleans Mardi Gras cultural zeitgeist as the person who first used the term deep gras on Instagram some number of years ago. Dominique, welcome to the show.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm so good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Happy deep gras.
Deep gras.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate.
Okay, great. There's a lot that I want to talk to you about besides just deep gras, but that's kind of the punch in here. So tell us, how did this happen? Because I can't imagine you woke up one morning and said, "I'm going to create a new term for the week before Fat Tuesday that people will use all the time, and tens of thousands of people will be arguing about it on Reddit." How did this happen?
Well, the first time I used it was the year prior to it going viral, and it was just a term, it was just an additive that I would add to something that was a little bit heavier, more profound than something else. So I was like, oh, that's deep stress, or that's deep this. It was just kind of this goofy slang and colloquial term that I was using a lot at the time. And the following year, on the 2020 Mardi Gras, I was costuming late one night and kind of just in this fun but exhausted state of Mardi Gras delirium and stress, which Mardi Gras stress is not real stress. However, our nervous system would like to disagree. And I just started writing deep gras. And I just came up with that and kind of described, it was that Tuesday night leading into what is now the last week of Mardi Gras, deep gras, whatever people want to call it is fine by me. And my stories just started getting all of these views and got screenshotted, and then there were all of these alternate plagiarized versions of what I wrote all over the internet.
Interesting.
And everyone was texting me and calling me and being like, did you see this? Did you see this? And it just kind of took over, and I have been along for the ride.
That's so interesting that people immediately recognized it as something that they wanted to share. And they actually they credited it. They credited you for it. Like they screenshotted your post or reshared your story on Instagram or whatever it was. People don't always do that. Sometimes they'll just rip and run and say, "Hey, this was my idea."
They did rip and run. Yeah. And I stepped in and sent. There was one particular person who saw what I had posted, screenshotted on one of their friends. It wasn't someone that I had known. I now know this person and I adore them and I think they're fantastic. They work in. I'll just say they work in making sure the city is super safe during hurricane season. So not only do I appreciate them for who they are and how they handled me just reaching out to them and being like, hey, I actually would really appreciate it if you credited me properly. I didn't want to call them out. I didn't want them to get, dragged on the internet. So they're an incredible person. They work in coastal restoration as well as keeping the city safe during hurricane season. That's all I'll say. But love them. Big shout out to them if they happen to hear this. And also love that we now have a friendship. And
that's great.
Yeah. And so it kind of just started flying off the shelves. And of course, to my friends and the people who know me very well, we were all just kind of not baffled because at this point, we all had seen how the internet has worked, but kind of just giggling over this. It was so funny to us, and also to read the comments and to see people get so outraged over something.
People are like, I never heard about deep gras until 5 years ago, and everyone's always trying to change Mardi Gras. And you're from Louisiana. You're not like some Jane come lately from California or something. I mean, you have as right much to this as anyone.
From Louisiana.
Yeah.
I'm deeply, deeply from Louisiana. I am both French and Cajun French. My family has been here since the 1700s, before it was a French colony. So unless someone is indigenous or came as a direct descendant of the Spanish colonialists, my family's been here. And also I have very historic jazz players in my family from multiple generations. And, they helped shape early jazz and from the late 1800s into the early 1900s. And
Wow.
It's funny to me for people to say, oh, you're not from here. You know, of course, I went through Katrina. I was 13. I just did a huge project this past summer called Generation Katrina, where I interviewed 20 other Katrina kids and talked about everything that we could. I even gave a shout out to WWL because I myself do radio.
Nice.
And I'm still really inspired by the broadcast during that time. It was obviously award-winning, but it was also saving lives and helping people feel connected during a time where media was hard to find and hard to access.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a radio show on Fridays on WWL called Tunnel Visions at 2 p.m. But back to what we're saying is there's this outrage, right? And what I find funny is the outrage about the name Deep Gras, meaning, oh, it means deep fat. That is a valid expression, just like Fat Tuesday is a valid expression. The French love a play on words. Mardi Gras is a play on words. And so I don't understand how people can be outraged by something that is just historically French and goofy and a part of the culture itself since before France was ever in the continental U.S.
People just love to be upset about stuff.
They sure do, but it's fine. I think it's funny. I get in on the comment section sometimes, and if I see a troll, they don't know it's me, and so I'll just comment. I'll say, I heard she's not even from here, and then all my friends will see my comment on some big account replying to this other comment, and then they're all liking it, and the person's really confused, like, why there's all these laugh emojis. And I've had so much fun with it, and I've also made some incredible connections with, you know, like What's Poppin' Nola and like people who run these bigger accounts because they know me, but also I've also been able to kind of keep the eyes more on my music career and things like that. It's more of an inside joke at this point. But I'm so glad that it's turned into a cultural phenomena for all of us to share.
I want to talk to you more.
It is a real situation.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I think that's part of what sort of juiced the virality of it is that most people immediately understand what that means. It's not like, oh, it's the funny 40 fellows or the Joan of Arc where it's, is that part of Carnival? Of course it is. But it's not the part where, like, your office is closed. Your kids aren't going to school. You can't park in front of your house. There's bands, there's floats. Like, it's just the city moves into this kind of mode where it's just deep. It's just deep gras, man. It's funny. And I want to talk about your music in a moment. But I'm so interested to hear your observations on watching other people commenting on your viral work because I think it was it was right after Thanksgiving in 2010 that I was bored over a long weekend and I put together a flow chart that was called Where to Drink in New Orleans. And it was like a decision tree where it's like, well, where are you from? What are you interested in doing? Where are you interested in being? What do you want to see? What kind of music? What kind of people do you want to hang out with? And it's a pretty elaborate flow chart. It ended up going crazy viral. I mean, people are writing stories about it on NOLA.com and Huffington Post. And of course, I didn't expect any of that. So my name wasn't on it. So all my friends are sharing it. My family is sending it to me and saying, oh, my God, did you see this? And I said, yeah, Ma, I saw that. I made it. And, it just. And then to see people say, like, this isn't accurate. That's not the kind of music they have there. Black lawyers don't actually hang out at Sweet Lorraine's. You can't actually meet drug dealers at whatever, and it's just like, man, just let people enjoy things. You don't have to, not everything is an opportunity for you to get upset and show how smart you are.
Right. But also, I mean, I think what my post was originally about and what I still really stand by is something happens to our state of mind during this last week where we kind of just let go of control. Yeah. And in that suspension, it is kind of deep. We're kind of going through this inner journey of trying to have fun, of connecting with community, of reliving nostalgia, or maybe you're experiencing it for the first time and you're so overwhelmed by how much is going on. There's so much inside of us that comes out during this final week of the year. It really is a time, like so many holidays that we have, we really celebrate with like our families or our close friends, but this is celebrated so intensely and in an interwoven fashion with our community. And it's so powerful. It involves so much art, so much music, so much of the political stage is put on display. And it's so powerful. And I really just can't help but think that deep gras is actually that deep.
Damn, Dominique, this is... I mean, I had high expectations anyway, just because I spent some time learning about you this morning. But some of what you're saying is really quite profound. And I think some people listening might be surprised to hear you speak so eloquently. And frankly, from a place of such authority about it, you know, when the reason we invited you on is to just talk about this silly little Instagram thing. But you've really got a lot to say about this. What you know,
well, I mean, you can tell from my writing, I'm a cultural observer by nature. I am always observing how things work and noticing patterns. And it's not often that I write about it or do something outwardly about it outside of, you know, there's been a few occasions where this is not the first time I've gone viral. I've had music that's gone viral. I did a funny, like, mattress spray paint in honor of the Katrina spray paint on everything after Ida when I lost my apartment. And that went viral, but no one knew it was my mattress. It was like so funny. And it became like a public comment board because people spray painted more on it.
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I believe I know what you're talking. Was that on
what I'm talking about?
Was it on St.
The sentient the sentient mattress on St. Claude.
Damn, dude, I knew it. That's buck wild. I remember that mattress. Costume. Wow.
Yeah, people have worn that as Halloween costumes. I've seen photos of it, and no one knows that's the deep gras girl. That's this person, Dominique. That's the girl who does tunnel visions. That's DJ Domi Nom Nom. Whatever people know me as, it's all the same person. And I mean, of course, I'm kind of in my little world, in my little lane with my musician community and my friends, and who are all artists, and we all get a big kick out of these things, as I think the mainstream world does too, which is what art's all about. And I'm just so happy that people have connected with it in one way or the other, and it's definitely exciting for me. And I do like that it makes people think about names and like etymology of like how things work. And I wish they would get more curious, because I'll tell you something, to say deep gras in French is gras profond, so profound, fast would be what it is. So that deep gras in French is gras profond. So it's this hilarious play on words, but if you look at Mardi Gras, everything is a play on words. We've got Barkus instead of Bacchus. It's all goofy. It's all slang. I'm also Cajun French, which is entirely, our whole language revolves around adapting to our surroundings and the culture and surviving, and it's not the same as regular French. There's plenty of sayings in Cajun French that don't make sense in regular French. And, this is just, I would say, a modern version of that.
Dominique, can I hold you on like another 10 minutes? I planned to let you go after one segment, but I'm throwing out the playbook here. I'd love to keep you until about 1:50. Can you do that?
Sure, no problem.
Superb. Then let's take a break and we'll come back. I'm going to kind of recollect. I was going to talk about politics or something. I don't want to do that anymore. Dominique LeJeune is a local musician and artist, and she was the first to use the term deep gras on Instagram some number of years ago. We'll come back and I'm going to ask her a little bit about, the meaning of deep gras / Mardi Gras, how people can access it and how people can bring that sort of spirit with them even after Fat Tuesday and Ash Wednesday have come and gone. That and much more coming up on WWL. I'm Ian Hoch in for Scoot. Be right back after this.
Ian Hoch. Stories that demand attention, voices that matter, and conversations that make change. The Oakland Heart Jewelers Talk and Text line is open at 504-260-1870.
Dominique LeJeune is a local musician and artist whose family has been in Louisiana for a very, very long time. What did you say? It's how many generations you go back?
I don't know the exact number of generations, but my first relative arrived around 1725 on a boat called the Saint Dominique.
Yes.
His name was Blaise Basil LeJeune. We're distantly related to the famous Cajun musician Irie LeJeune, and then I'm also on my mom's side related to some early famous jazz musicians.
Amazing. Okay.
Who were performing performing in Reliance Brass Band in the late 1800s, and then in their own projects as jazz evolved.
I promise I'm going to get to your music towards the end here, but you've moved me to ask you some sort of, I think, harder to answer questions about Mardi Gras and community and what the culture of it all means, because it seems like you've really spent a lot of time thinking about this. What does Mardi Gras reveal about our community here that you think is like hidden the rest of the year?
Well, traditionally, and I'm talking about like the origins of Mardi Gras in France. We're talking the medieval times. We're talking this is like 1000 AD. We're early medieval times through present day. Mardi Gras served as this time that was like it's obviously got religious significance. Mm-hmm. It ends the day before Lent. The whole point is that you are gluttonous and indulgent, and you enjoy yourself before you would be fasting and essentially repenting for Lent in honor of Jesus and Easter, etc. And so that time window beforehand became this kind of feast, communal feast time. And that evolved into this time where people would essentially get to relieve this sense of social tension and reverse these roles of strict hierarchies. And there's this whole reason that the masks are involved, because people wearing masks allowed them to hide their identities, and it enabled them to participate in mischief and satire without a fear of repercussion. And it was all about this kind of mockery of the church and the elite, or just the things they didn't like at the time in their own communities. And we see that 1,000 years later happening here in New Orleans in the exact same way. It's literally illegal for parade riders on the floats to not be masked. And that comes from this tradition. It's supposed to allow them to participate without a fear of judgment. And also, I believe there's another part of that, which is they're essentially, throwing out what is jewelry and presents to the public, right? And I think that there's this concept of anonymous donorship and that kind of identity as well as it's evolved in New Orleans. And I think the core traditions we think of when we think of Mardi Gras in New Orleans is, of course, the parades, it's the marching bands, it's the black masking Indians, it's the classic regalia of the balls. But it also is so much more than that, because it really is about creation and community coming together to kind of serve as a voice for our shared consciousness and let some of that out through this creative fashion. And it really does renew my sense of love for my community and the traditions and how we all grow together so beautifully year after year, despite what's going on politically, socially, or even personally here in New Orleans. We had such an insanely beautiful Mardi Gras after Hurricane Katrina. And the themes were for years about blue tarps and fridges and FEMA trailers, because that was a part of our zeitgeist at the time. And, I went to Crew de Vue in 26-degree weather, and the floats were insanely funny. They were beautiful. It was,
I remember.
The puns were never ending.
Yeah.
Every parade, even the most traditional, like Rex, has floats that talk about what's going on socially and politically, both here in New Orleans and beyond on the global stage. And I really do believe it provides us a sense of laughter and levity right at the very tail end of winter, which is somewhat much needed at this time of year traditionally. So I feel it's got a lot of meaning to me. Yeah. Even if people just view it as an outlet to party and have a good time, that has meaning too.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm often in a position where I'm having to explain to outsiders, people who don't know this and have never experienced and never participated in, it's not just a party. I mean, that's great. I'm glad people get a chance to do that, but I don't know if sacred is too strong of a word to use for these rituals and these moments where we come together with our friends and loved ones and everything that you said, the history of it, these old ancient traditions that really are about letting us be the most honest versions of ourselves. I think it's hard to explain that to outsiders, and what do you think that they misunderstand the most about this part of our culture?
Outsiders, I think I would say that you've definitely hit the nail on the head with that. Outsiders, I mean, I know growing up here, people thought that Mardi Gras was kind of how New Orleans was all the time. They thought it was, people on Bourbon Street, maybe people flashing for beads, that sort of behavior. But in reality, it's so deeply ritualistic. It's so deeply ingrained in our families. From the kids putting a trumpet to their mouth for the first time, to the costuming traditions you see handed down generation after generation, to the families. I have so many little pieces of Mardi Gras history in my family from, family members like my mom participating in balls when they were younger. It's so deeply symbolic, but it's also traditional for us. It's a way of carrying culture and a love for our city, our history, our lineages, and the fact that we're still here year after year. And I feel like the party is just kind of a benefit of it. It's a windfall, really. And I think that relieving that social tension in the way that we do allows, it's kind of a controlled chaos. At times it's uncontrolled, but by allowing kind of mockery and that levity, I really think that it does a lot of healing for us to get to say the things in a kind of maybe raunchy or raucous way that really gets people to laugh. It gets people to poke fun at some of the things that have felt heavy. And for me, I find that deeply therapeutic. I also just find it really beautiful and powerful. For me, I would say that people underestimate the scope of how wide and how I keep wanting to use the word deep, but I mean it in a different way this time, how deep the Mardi Gras threads go throughout community and how many layers there are. There's so many different crews. There's so many different traditions. We've got Cajun Mardi Gras out in Western Louisiana and Central South Louisiana. And those traditions are much more medieval, but they perform the same function. They're much more rural and beautiful. I've been out there. It's incredible and is deeply powerful as well. It's a lot less glitter, a lot more hoopla in a different way. And it's just a time that I wish that other cultures had carnival in the way that we do. Obviously, there's many carnivals all over the world. But I wish that more cities in America had what we have here, because it brings us together in a way despite our differences. And that, to me, is something that people are not aware of.
Dominique, I think that I could talk to you for the entire afternoon. It's not possible for us to do that today, but I did want to give you an opportunity to tell us about your music, your artistry. We don't have a ton of time here. I don't want to rush you, but you do have to be kind of fleet. What kind of music do you play, and where can we see you play it?
Sure. So I am a songwriter. I write kind of folk music, but there's instrumentation. It's kind of a mix between a lot of my New Orleans influence blended with some of just the timeless classics that I love. I love a vintage sound, and sometimes that has horns. Sometimes maybe that's going to have flute. Sometimes it's just beautiful guitar. I'm a vocalist, and my music is a lot more personal. It's about my life, my experiences, my emotions. It's less about the political or social, cultural commentary that you kind of see in the writing that I did for the Deep Gras series. If anyone wants to find out what I'm doing, the best place to find me would be on Instagram. You can search my name, Dominique LeJeune, or at Practically Tragic.
Practically Tragic, huh?
Yeah.
That's cute. Listen,
a little bit of a play on words itself.
Dominique LeJeune, what you said today, it moved me. I feel moved, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening who feel the same way, and it's just the perfect way to push us into the next week, into Deep Gras. Which if next time I hear somebody talking smack about the term Deep Gras, I'm going to tell that person to take a seat, because you are the real deal, Dominique. We're going to keep you in the Rolodex, and I hope we can talk to you again soon. I'll see you on the streets.
Happy Mardi Gras.
And to you. We'll be right back, folks. This is Dominique. Coleman pulled it up. I didn't even know. What song is this?
It's called Blow Me Away.
Blow Me Away by Dominique LeJeune. All right, let her play a few more seconds, and then we got to do the commercial.